Okay, my name is Nicholas, and this is Early Associations, testing out outgroup hate in infants. We know that social identity and group membership is critical to human fitness, but in-group positivity doesn't appear to fully explain why people form negative outgroup attitudes and behaviors. Previous studies have suggested that investigating group bias may have been limited by failing to account for the effects of social norms and attitude display. For example, in North America, it is not socially desirable to express overtly racist beliefs, although in situations where it is socially acceptable to express negative outgroup behaviors, these effects are stronger, as seen in sports fans who've shown a greater inclination to cause negative effects for their rivals as opposed to positive effects for their in-group members. However, previous literature has left an unclear picture about when, that is, at what age, we uniquely adopt positive versus negative intergroup biases. In a non-experimental review of the evidence for infant self-other interpretation, Meltzoff in 2007 identifies that preference for those who are like us as a baseline for human development. Accordingly, infants display awareness of others' behavior and motivations, such as when they are mirroring our movement. And moreover, infants also show the capacity to make complex models predicting the outcomes of their behavior, such as if I do X thing, Y outcome will happen. Further highlighting the innateness of out-of-group bias, this research shows the importance of studies that identify how bias is further learned and subsequently acted on. So in 2011, Dunham, Barron, and Carey conducted 3 experiments testing whether 5-year-old children's membership in randomly assigned groups with little affiliation, like group labels, or cause, like competition, would lead to intergroup biases. Experimental conditions randomized participant shirt color to either match or differ from a visual or described stimulus during a computerized task. Despite minimal stimuli or attention given to matching or differing membership, children develop both implicit and implicit biases from attitude and resource allocation, predicted behavior and reciprocity, and even showed bias memory towards positive aspects of in-group members. Although results align with the evidence of social group distinction occurring around the same time, findings challenge theories of enculturation, given the lack of social learning required to make these judgments. Bigler, Jones, and Lobliner, however, conducted a study with children in the age range of 6 to 9 years old, in which they experimentally manipulated teachers' referencing of t-shirt color as functional use for classroom organization over a 4-week period. In doing so, researchers thought to test how the social categorization may or may not cause these group biases. Here, functional color labels were used for things around the classroom, such as to organize yourself based on color teams or groups. And this indicated greater development of variability as well as positive favorability of positive traits for in-group members. Moreover, children with higher self-esteem showed greater impacts of stereotyping. Importantly, however, functional labeling alone did not influence this prejudice. Yet together, this suggests that both social and interpersonal factors direct the display of group biases represented by the functional use and the esteem mentioned before. So this leaves the question then, when and to what extent are intergroup biases adopted? So developing a novel resource allocation, Buttleman and Baum measured 6 and 8-year-olds' dispersal of fictitious resources to either in or out group puppets or neutral box. 6-year-olds displayed in-group compassion when dispersing the positive resources like balloons or a teddy bear. They're in groups. 8-year-olds also showed this. However, they were the only to indicate also negativity towards outgroups by dispersing items like broken glass or moldy toast to non-group members. So thus, in-group member positivity may be more readily in child's nature, while out-group negativity is learned thereafter, not guiding children's intergroup behavior until the age of 8. And such findings have important implications for emphasizing the difference in development versus learning of negative out-group thinking versus in-group compassion. Yet children's allocations of negative resources to the out-group might have been dampened by social desirability, given that at the age of 5, children begin to alter their behavior in the presence of others to manage their reputations. Given that there was experimenters present, this might have been a contributing factor to the lack of effect seen in the younger group. So the next three studies investigate an age group before these restrictions occur. So for example, Chow in 2018 examined infants' looking time to images of own race and other race faces that were paired with either happy or sad music, and found that 9-month-old infants looked longer when own race faces were paired with happy music compared to sad music, or outgroup members with sad music versus happy music. And together, these findings have provided novel evidence for the 9-month-old's inclination to associate both positivity with in-group members as well as negative outgroup membership. Similarly, Hamlin et al. 2013 introduced 9 and 14-month-old infants to target characters matched by similar or dissimilar food preferences. And then researchers gave them a preferential choice between an individual who had either helped or harmed a target. But interestingly, participants' preferences depended on the identity of those targets, such that they preferred individuals who had helped similar targets, similar by food preference, suggesting positive attributes towards in-group members, but they also preferred individuals who had harmed dissimilar targets, displaying that outward negativity. And although this study provides further evidence for early onset negativity bias, this paradigm did require some degree of learning compared to the minimal effects seen before. And in contrast, Pun et al. 2018 investigated even earlier onset biases by using a looking time habituation procedure, where researchers first examined how 6 to 12-month-old infants would learn to associate their in-group language, in this case English, with positivity, and an out-group language, French, with negativity in-group versus out-group members, produced by puppets conducting either prosocial or antisocial behaviors. And findings revealed that by the first birthday, infants would associate English speakers behaving prosocially. However, there was no difference in infants' habituation speed to outgroup members paired with either negative or positive stimuli. So findings provide insight that having a positive evaluation of in-group members does not directly lead to the negative evaluation of unfamiliar groups seen in this age group just before. So though the phylogenetic origin of in-group preference is evident, yet negative outgroup biases appear susceptible to buffering. Outgroup hate has been shown as early as 9 months old, and has been relatively inconsistent, requiring occasionally some degree of learning. Nonetheless, effects do appear seamless, requiring at times minimal affiliation or cause by the age of 5. However, none of these studies tested young infants' actual behavior towards outgroup members, leaving open the question of whether the documented associations would result in behavioral biases, and that is for the age group as young as 9 months, not the 5-year-olds. So in this study, I will employ both implicit and behavioral measures to clarify the effects of outgroup hatred in infants as young as 9 months, at an age where social desirability concerns have not yet emerged. My first hypothesis is that infants will look longer when puppets in their outgroup are paired with sad music. And when distributing negative resources, infants will distribute more moldy vegetables to their outgroup counterparts as opposed to their in-group or the neutral box. To the methods, based on literature using similar study design, we're using a sample of 64, which has been determined in order to detect a significant effect within power of 84%. An age group will be between 9 and 18 months, and we'll assign children to one of two conditions that were defined using 3 criteria. So the first is clothing color. Second is labels, so sunshine versus the flames. And then functional use during the experiment, as well as to replicate Chow et al. Separating functional groups by race as well. So all those factors together between the two groups. And each of these criteria has been shown to mark social distinctions for infants and children in previous work. So for example, in one trial, a child from the yellow group would be reflected to look at that puppet, she looks just like you, before completing a given task. So first, children conducted looking time paradigm, whereby in-group members are paired with happy music and out-groups with sad. The resource distribution adapted from Buttleman and Baum 2000. I missed the date here. I think it was 2018. Were handed positive resources, in this case candy for this experiment, and negative resources were moldy vegetables. And then children would decide whose box to put it in, given the neutral, in-group, or out-group member. For our results, given that Dunham and colleagues have identified that children are sensitive to implicit biases toward out-groups with only shared clothing colors, and that similar findings are shown by Chow et al. In 2018 as a function of group members, member race as early as 9 months old, I anticipate my results for the first hypothesis to show a significant difference between the mean length of looking time between the two variations, such that longer looking times are attributed to out-group and sad music compared to out-group and happy music. Conversely, replicating the same literature and group pairing with happy music will display the strongest association by looking time, evidenced by further research emphasizing the innateness of liking others who are similar to us in Meltzoff's review in 2007. And if true, results provide further evidence for infants' development of implicit biases despite minimal emphasis made in this paradigm. And while Buttleman and Baum, Dunham, Barron, and Carey in 2014 and 2011 respectively, as well as Chalik and Wynn in 2023, have identified that group identity is associated with in-group love, and in some cases out-group hatred when distributing both positive and negative resources. Inconsistencies still come up regarding the age of onset that may be attributable to socialized restriction, whereby children do not respond to their true behavior out of fear of judgment from an observer. So this suggested that potential missed effects, such as false negatives, in studies such as Buttleman and Baum in 2014. Nonetheless, for our second hypothesis, when distributing negative resources, so the rotten vegetables, infants gave more resources to their out-group members compared to a neutral or in-group alternative, suggesting that when social norms are yet to be developed, even infants 9 months old display out-group hate. For implications, our study provides evidence for the innateness of intergroup biases, both behaviorally and implicitly. Specifically, we've shown that out-group negativity manifests as early as 9 months old in parallel with in-group love, with minimal affiliation or cause, and must therefore be a fundamental motivation for intergroup attitudes. Because the implicit and explicit biases we develop in our formative years direct our pro-social and antisocial behavior across our lifetime, this research has far-reaching implications for how infants and children adopt negative attitudes toward out-group members. Thus, findings call upon the necessity to expand the academic understanding of early development of intergroup bias and how harmful development may be mitigated. Thank you for listening.